If I end up naming this video Synplant 2 is overrated or something like that, please watch the full video before getting mad about it. Overrated does not mean bad. It means that it is valued too highly. I still think it's good. Great even. I just don't think it is the greatest plugin of the last decade or anything people have been suggesting. What's going on today, guys? Welcome back to an episode of Plugin Police. Today we'll be looking at Synplant 2. Synplant 2 is Sonic Charge's somewhat new synthesizer. They updated it after nearly 15 years. It has several unique features and a UI that you will not find in any other synth. It has a seed in the center that turns into little plants. I know, it already sounds stupid. You can clone the branches or re-randomize it. You can have different sounds on each note, or you can have a single sound that plays across different notes. You will probably like it unless you have botanophobia. That's when you have an intense fear of plants. That's some smart comedy. But I also do not think this plugin is for everyone anyways. We'll get into that a bit later. They have rewritten the audio engine from the ground up and improved the algorithms for every part of the process. Maybe that's why it took them 15 years. Nearly 15 years, whatever. They have revamped the process of editing with the DNA editor. It looks like what version 1 had, but it's much more visual. You can actually see what the oscillator waveforms look like, as well as the envelopes, etc. According to the creator, they made the sound editor a pretty difficult DNA spiral to use on purpose. Yeah, this guy's a sick f. The portions of the DNA editor known as genes are all MIDI controllable and support automation. They've added MPE support as well. They've added the ability to switch between mono and poly and adjust glide and portamento, as well as tempo sync. It's kind of hard to believe the original Synplant didn't have these options, but I actually opened it up myself while planning out this review, and yeah, surprisingly, this thing is very archaic. This is absolutely disgusting. I'm gonna go through the different modes they've added here, and in order to make sure you stay awake, I'm gonna use a tried and true process of yelling a random word every so often in each sentence. They've added several different modes. There's the standard mode, which has They've added several different modes. There's the standard mode, which has a different branch and sound on each note. Then another one which goes by velocity, so it'll be a different note depending on the velocity. The next mode goes by range of notes. So for instance, C2 to F2 plays one type of sound, F sharp 2 to B2, and so on and so forth. And then the last mode allows you to layer different branches together by selecting which ones you want to play. Most importantly though, they added the GENOPATCH. Essentially, you can drag and drop a sample into it and it'll attempt to replicate the sound with the synthesizer. It makes a bunch of different versions of the sound. Some of them are similar and some of them are quite a bit different. It depends on which sound you're using and how it's able to replicate it. You can use these sounds within the normal interface of Synplant and even edit them. Wow, they've made it moddable with JavaScript, skins, and extensions. I'm not quite sure what that will entail yet, but I have seen a dark mode floating around. It has VST3 compatibility now. This is a dream for sound design. You can put in a sample and get that sound and a bunch of other sounds, not really immediately, but once it's done burning a hole in your computer. The upside to this though is you can actually adjust the sounds after it remakes them. It's great for getting new ideas. If you combine this with Infiltrator, you have an infinite idea turbine. Definitely a powerful adversary for writer's block. The results do vary quite a bit though. It works best with simple and intermediate sounds, and it absolutely shits the bed with complex sounds. I found that it's often not capable of remaking sounds that utilize wavetables or complex frequency modulation. For instance, I stuck a sample of a neuro sound that I made in Vital into it, and it completely did not do it. It didn't do it well at all. It was embarrassing. One of the things I tested early on was just dragging in a basic kick sample into it to see what would happen. It had an interesting response. Almost all the kick samples it made were nearly identical. When I was putting kicks in there, it seemed like the weirder the kicks were, the more likely it was to do something weird, in a good or bad way. It'd be funny if it was just literally copy pasting the sample back to you but not telling you. I don't think it does that. I feel like it'd be most optimal if it only remade the sound in a couple of the nodes and the rest of the nodes were trying to be a bit more different. I'm assuming it kind of goes for a shotgun sort of method where it just tries to do it a bunch of times, and sometimes it hits and sometimes it misses, and sometimes it's just the same sound over and over. One thing I've noticed quite a few people talking about is while it's generating sounds in the GENOPATCH, your computer basically lights on fire. and I'm not a big fan of that. I fired up the GENOPATCH earlier and I thought I was under attack. This might be asking for a bit much here, but it'd be nice if it was able to deal with wavetables as well too, or just different types of synthesis. It would allow it to recreate more sounds, but I'm sure it would also be much more complex to make that function. We can always hope, right? But overall speaking, most synthesizer sounds can be recreated by the GENOPATCH. Most might actually be overselling it a little bit. It's hard to judge how many sounds it's capable of making it due to how many different types of sounds exist. It's definitely a powerful tool that has creative uses from time to time, but it is far from being overpowered or replacing my need for other synthesizers. TLDR, wake me up when we have GENOPATCH for Serum. I know this is how it works since version 1, but I do enjoy how it puts different sounds on different branches. It can be useful for writing something that has a call and response. It also helps you find sounds that you're interested in a lot quicker. I feel like it'd be great if you could lock specific branches or parameters. I generally feel like that's really useful with any sort of randomization software. When doing a call and response sort of melody, I find myself wanting to lock certain sounds and change out other ones. One way I found around this is to randomize a specific branch, but you're gonna have to randomize a bunch of branches if you want to do what I was talking about. I've also found that the sounds it generates are not always in key, but there is an option to fix that. And I'm not talking about the atonality or the tuning settings. There's actually a setting in the menu to correct tuning. There's definitely a slight learning curve to it. It's nowhere near as bad as Synplant, but it is set up quite differently from other synthesizers. The DNA section is not as intuitive as it could be. It's definitely a case of it being form over function. Apparently the creator made it that way on purpose though. You sick fuck. I will find you. I will find you. I like how it makes it clear what branch you are editing when you are in the DNA editor, but it only does it shortly after you play a sound. In my opinion, it'd be greater if it always told you. The sound of it is pretty good. I found it to be on par with other synthesizers, but it definitely sounds better than Synplant 1. The effects have a little bit to be desired. There's only basic ones such as reverb, saturation, soft clipping. It's like they spent years working on the GENOPATCH section and we're like, it's done. All right, wrap it up, boys. Send it out. It's not really a big deal, though. You can use effects in other plugins. You know which one I'm going to say. The preset menu has quite a bit to be desired as well too. You have to go through folders and it seems a bit archaic for something with such extreme technology as the GENOPATCH system. The patch navigator within the plugin only navigates within the folder that you're in currently. It'd be much nicer if you could go back through other folders within the menu. It'd also be nice if they had a few macro knobs for it as well too. This is one thing I wouldn't really mind if they copied it from Vital. I know you can manually bind things to MIDI, but it'd be nicer to also have macros at the bottom or something. Okay, the price. Let's talk about the price. Depending on how tightly you hold your wallet, $150 could seem like a bit much for this. I think they put themselves in a corner where they had to charge $150 though, seeing as Synplant 1 cost $100, the lowest they could charge for the upgrade is $50. $50 is definitely a fair price for an upgrade though. It definitely leans more in the favor of the consumer. When considering the price, I think it depends on how much you value the GENOPATCH and how much you value a different approach to the synthesis that Synplant 2 would provide you. The GENOPATCH is something unique that you can't find anywhere else currently though. If you find yourself craving this sort of experimentation while making sounds, then $150 is kind of a no-brainer. But obviously there's a 3-week trial, check that out first. If you use Synplant 1 a lot, definitely get Synplant 2, because Synplant 2 blows out of the water. Here are a few different things I made with Synplant 2. I did use Infiltrator for effects in a few of them to get to the sound I was actually going for. This one's an experimental trap sort of thing. This one's a melodic trap beat with a deep house progression. This one's drum and bass. The starting sound is pretty basic. You can make this with any synth. This one's sort of ambient. I just put it here to showcase how you can morph the sounds in real time. In conclusion, the technology behind Synplant 2 is crazy. It can recreate simple to intermediate sounds pretty easily, but not complex sounds, and having the ability to tweak the sounds too afterwards is really nice. It's a cool tool, but it hasn't really changed the way I approach making music, and it hasn't replaced anything I use currently either. It is refreshing to see a synth that isn't just copying what is out there currently. If you press the like button on this video, I'll give you this, whatever this is. You can have this. If you enjoyed this video, check out my review on Isotope Ozone 11. I'll link it at the end here. If you want to support my channel, consider joining my Patreon or becoming a channel member. You get exclusive content every now and then, as well as this thing, whatever this is right here, as well as a sample pack at the end of each month. I'll see you guys next time.
Bang Incorporated.